Hi, Acadiana. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Happy Sunday to you. Hopefully you're having a nice long 4th of July weekend, and this is day 4 for you. We continue to watch Tropical Storm Beryl, which has started to make a little bit of an increase in its intensity here over the last several hours as reconnaissance aircraft have gone out there and continue to check out the system. It's been a long-running system. We first recognized this on Let's Talk Tropics as a tropical wave way back on June the 25th. And here we are on July the 7th, and we're waiting for this thing to make landfall here now, probably within 12 to 15 hours or so. Let's check it out as we look at the radar here this afternoon rather. Some outer bands are starting to reach their way up toward the Cameron Parish coast. Might have a few heavy downpours making their way in that particular area. We'll kind of take a little radar tour here, and this is the Houston radar. You can see some heavy storms coming through the city right now. And then we also have radars to check out here as we go around the Texas Gulf Coast. There's Corpus Christi, where you can clearly see the center of Tropical Storm Beryl. And as we move a little bit farther down toward the south here at the Brownsville radar, that's the closest one. You can clearly see where the center of circulation is, and they've got some squalls that are reaching their way onto the coast as we speak. So looks like we're going to see a chance for at least some showers and thunderstorms here at home. Temperatures are going to be running back in the 90s. A real quick look at our traffic cams. Not much going on out there. A lot of cloud cover that will help to keep the temperatures down just a few degrees. But let's go right out to where the hurricane cams are. And over in South Padre Island, looks like they're going to get more of an offshore flow from this as the center is going to be pulling northward. So not a whole lot of a surge there as it's been moving northward, but some rough seas that you can see. And as we look at the Queen Isabella Memorial Bridge, that's between the mainland and South Padre Island. You can see the palm trees there in the foreground moving a little bit more as it's closer to the center, so they're starting to get some winds, getting possibly close to tropical storm force. A lot of folks pulling their boats out at Aransas Pass. This is probably going to be one of the areas that's closer to a landfall. They're somewhere between Port O'Connor and then probably up to around Freeport, Texas, where we could see a potential landfall here in the next 12 hours. And this is a look at a camera that's near Galveston Bay, and that's looking out toward the offshore waters. And this is an area you'll probably see the waters coming up with a bit of a storm surge there in Galveston, as they will be on the onshore flow side of Tropical Storm, or what may be Hurricane Beryl, as it makes its way back toward the Texas coast. So there's a look at our satellite imagery, and it is starting to look a little bit more symmetrical, and some of the shear is relaxing and will relax here for its last 12 to 15 hours over water. And there's also some very, very warm waters here right along the Texas coast in this area too. So anywhere in this particular area and over here as well would have some waters that are conducive for some development, and also with the wind shear kind of backing off, it may have a chance to reach hurricane status once again as it moves over toward the Texas Gulf Coast. Notice there is a flare-up of some thunderstorms here on the outside that's kind of moving around, and that's heading over to around the Houston area. Kind of fizzles a little bit down here, so I'm not sure how much of this is actually going to reach the Acadiana region. Everything seems to be tightening up now, more closer to the center of circulation there in the offshore waters, and will continue to do so as the system moves closer and closer to land. Last check, as of 10 o'clock, the winds were back up to 65 miles per hour. It's been holding at 60 since it left the Yucatan Peninsula about a day and a half ago. So now we're starting to see the pressures drop just a little bit, and the hurricane models are still clustered right there on that central Texas coast. That is a little bit farther to the north and east of what we were seeing earlier, but all of these areas have basically been within the hurricane cone, the 5-day cone from the National Hurricane Center over the last several days. So those watches and warnings going up. A lot of folks there along the Texas Gulf Coast have been watching this for a very, very long time. As far as the intensity models, most are taking this right up to the Category 1 hurricane status at landfall right here, and then starting to drop off 24 hours. So we are expecting a landfall here sometime within the next 12 hours or so, and then it starts to drop off very quickly as you get out to a couple of days. Then this would be a remnant tropical depression here over the next several days as it moves farther inland and eventually gets pulled up by the westerlies could bring us some better chances for rain, but this one doesn't look like it's going to get stuck. Looks like it's going to get yanked farther to the north and hopefully will not stall over eastern portions of Texas. So let's go through some of the individual bigger models. The GFS is calling for a strong tropical storm just prior to landfall with winds at 56.3 knots, so that is just below the 65 knot threshold for a hurricane, but a pretty good onshore flow here and a pressure there at 988, which would be slightly lower on the pressure from where it is right now. It's pretty good onshore winds here along the Louisiana coast too, and that's going to cause some minor coastal flooding over portions of Cameron Parish. The Euro model is now the weakest of the four that I'm going to show you here. This has just got a 43 knot wind coming in here at the very last moment. This is the farthest east and north of a landfall as well here. Freeport, Texas is about where this landfall is. And as we go through the HWRF, this has been the strongest and is the strongest and has also been the strongest when it comes to the intensity of hurricanes that it's forecast here with Beryl over the last couple of weeks or so. This is also going with a hurricane, 84.9 knots, so you're starting to push up close to Category 2. And in fact, the National Hurricane Center is urging folks that live along the Middle Texas coast to be preparing for a low-end Category 2, even though the official forecast is Category 1 at landfall. But, you know, things do happen and you get some intensity changes sometimes at the last minute. The HAFS model comes in just slightly faster. The Euro and the GFS has a landfall probably right about in here at about midnight, while the other, rather about 3 o'clock in the morning, or 3 o'clock in the morning, and the other one has it coming in just a few hours earlier. So that is something we'll be watching on the timing, but we think about 12 to 15 hours is going to be a pretty good bet. But pretty much all four of the models that I just showed you are all right in this general direction for a landfall here within the next 12 hours or so. So you got Corpus Christi down here, you got Houston up here, and then you got Port O'Connor, or you got Aransas Pass, which is right about there. You got Port O'Connor that's right about in there. So somewhere in these areas, Matagorda Bay right here, are where we're going to be seeing a landfalling hurricane. So what does that mean for us? It really doesn't mean a whole lot of change from what the forecast has been all along. We're probably going to see some above normal tides right here along the extreme southwestern Louisiana coast. But now that we got that big break in that ridge of high pressure that was basically spread all across the south late last week, with that bit of an opening, it's going to go ahead and pull inland and then gradually should get pulled back out this way with this upper trough that's moving across the central part of the U.S., which is actually good news because if this wasn't here, then we would have this thing kind of stalling over Texas, and then we'd end up with multiple rounds of rain coming in on the east side of that, and that would cause some flooding even as far east as Louisiana. But with it moving, it does appear the initial flood risk is going to be right along the coast as we go into Monday, and then on Tuesday it's pretty much going to be covering more of central Texas. You can see that in the Tuesday map, and then by Wednesday everything really starts to move away and our flood risk is almost virtually nothing as we go into Wednesday. So as long as this stays on the move, we should be in good shape, and the expected rainfall for parts of the region here in Acadiana, we're probably looking about a 2 to 4 for the most part. That's that darker green shade. Out here where the hurricane or tropical storm makes landfall, we're still looking here anywhere between 6 and 12 inches of rain, which would be expected from a landfalling Category 1 hurricane or a strong tropical storm. Meanwhile, storm surge is going to be there. We're going to be having higher than normal tides all along the Texas coast. Also 1 to 3 feet above normal between Sabine Pass and the Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. And we do have a coastal flood warning that's up for Cameron Parish and will be in effect until Monday night. So that goes up this afternoon and will stay in effect until Monday night. And as far as tropical storm force winds, we're going to see some breezy conditions here in the Acadiana area, but our chances for actually seeing tropical storm force winds on land are virtually nothing. But some of our friends who might be working in the western part of the Gulf of Mexico's Louisiana waters there on some of the rigs out there might be seeing some stronger winds. Tropical storm force could be possible, and in the offshore waters, not recommended to be doing any boating, as even the nearshore waters are going to see 3 to 5 foot seas, which would be trouble for small craft. And then the far offshore waters, some of the forecasts are predicting up to 8 foot seas with winds getting as high as 35 knots. So as far as Hurricane Beryl or Tropical Storm Beryl, whichever it decides to be when it makes its way onshore, it looks like the impacts here in Acadiana are going to be minimal. Vermilion Bay, maybe up to 2 feet on above normal high tides, and Cameron and Vermilion Parish, you're probably looking up to 3 feet on those higher than average tides. Now, is there anything else to worry about? Remember, we talked about Hurricane Beryl as a tropical wave way back on June the 25th, so I think a lot of folks are looking for a break here. We have been watching what was disturbance 96L, which is really just a tropical wave here, and we've got another tropical wave that's moving out of the Atlantic Ocean and into the Caribbean Sea. Neither of these are looking too interesting, and that one that's there getting closer to Central America probably going to be bringing some decent rains. That was the strongest tropical disturbance that we were seeing besides Beryl here over the last several days, but it just doesn't look too organized. But there are some high water temperatures there in the western part of the Caribbean and a lot of high heat content. So we will watch it, but again, we're not too excited about it. And then farther out in the Atlantic, really not much going on. The eastern part of the Atlantic, it looks like a bit of a tropical wave trying to work its way now off of the African coast here, but there's still some decent Saharan dust to the north. We'll have to see how it interacts with that. But there is a lot of Saharan dust and dry air out there. So the National Hurricane Center, outside of Tropical Storm Beryl, is not expecting any tropical activity to develop here over the next 7 days. That would be a nice break, and usually July is a little bit slower, although it really kicked off with a bang with Hurricane Beryl becoming a Category 5, moving across the Atlantic, across the Caribbean, and now in the Gulf of Mexico. And we're expecting a landfall tomorrow, sometime probably before dawn there along the mid or upper Texas coast. If you want to check out some of the webcams, the links are down below in the description, as long as the electricity stays up there in Texas, which I think they'll have a better chance of keeping the electricity compared to our friends that were out in the Windward Islands. Those cameras will be up and they're on YouTube, and I've left the links there below in the description. You can check those out whenever. I will be back tomorrow morning for Acadiana weather today. That'll be our Monday edition. Probably we'll be talking a little bit more about Beryl making landfall and also the possibility of some decent rains coming in. And of course, Let's Talk Tropics will return once again tomorrow live at noon on a Monday. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker, and I hope to see you on Monday.